In today's video, we're going to be running through my team selection ahead of Game Week 9. We're going to give you all the key data you need to make the best decisions this game week. And of course, we're going to be looking at my transfers and of course, how my team got on in Game Week 8. Now, before we dive into my team selection ahead of today's video, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe as we are edging closer to that 10,000 subscriber mark. It would be absolutely incredible if we could do that by the end of the month, and it is only possible with your guys' help. Right, let's take a look at how we got on in Game Week 8. An absolutely stellar week for me, 56 points in the end. We absolutely cooked, and I couldn't be more delighted. I feel it's been a long time coming. It's not been the greatest start to the season. However, the team absolutely smashed it, so fair play to everyone. Obviously, the defense doing quite well. Salah, we brought Son in for Saka, so that does mean I am part of the content creators cartel, so do sue me, but unlike everyone else, I would actually share any news if I did get any, because I love you guys and I want you just to do as well as me. Vardy finally delivering as well. Love to see it. Haaland blanking, but we will come on to obviously talk about him. Right, let's head on. Let's take a look at, of course, this game week and how, which teams and which players and obviously ones that should be looking to target for Game Week 9. Of course, Manchester City versus Southampton is going to be the key standout. The best projected goals from the Fantasy Football Hub model. Best clean sheet data as well. So I do still feel like captaincy should definitely be within this fixture. Spurs as well going up against Palace, who've been absolutely woeful. Again, definitely some decent material. Definitely some players I would be looking to invest in that one. Brighton Wolves, I feel, could be quite an open game as well. Same with Brentford Ipswich as well. Definitely worth investing in Mbeumo if you haven't got him, and maybe some of their defensive assets as well. Moving on, let's take a look at expected goals conceded over the opening 8 game weeks, because we are now starting to build good data about teams and seeing which ones are the best and which ones are obviously the worst. As we can see there, it is the newly promoted clubs that are kind of truncated towards the bottom of that list. Ipswich, Southampton and Leicester all putting up very, very similar expected goals conceded. So I do think that bodes well for Manchester City this week. They are playing the second worst defence in the league, only just second as well in terms of that. So not a great kind of advert for Southampton this week, nor Ipswich as well. So bodes quite well for Brentford. Obviously, if you've got Chris Wood as well, bodes quite well for him. I know a lot of people are obviously looking at potentially bringing in Wolves or Brentford defenders, or even Everton defenders. They've not had the best start to the season in terms of that XG conceded, but I think with better fixtures now along the way, or players returning from injury, especially Jared Brumthwaite, I do think that will actually start to pick up over the next few weeks and will actually start to balance itself out a little bit. In terms of the best teams from a creative standpoint, of course, we have the expected goals created. Spurs have been absolutely flying. They currently sat third in Europe for non-penalty expected goals as well, so absolutely cooking so far this season. Really, really good going forward. They showed that at the weekend as well. A great fixture this week against Crystal Palace, who've had a rotten start to the season. That Game Week 11 fixture as well with Ipswich at home as well. We saw they were one of the worst teams. Spurs, one of the best teams. That to me seems like a fixture we definitely want to be targeting. There's not too many other good fixtures around that Game Week 11 one as well, and that is why I would be leaning towards Son this week as well as a potential transfer option over Cole Palmer, purely down to that captaincy in Game Week 11. You could go with Son, playing for one of the best attacks in the league so far, up against one of the worst defences. It spells a recipe for success for me. Again, similar-ish sides towards the bottom of the table, not looking too hot for expected goals created either for a lot of these newly promoted sides. Bournemouth, a very, very good attack, and I do feel when their fixtures turn around Game Week 12, we also see that in the 11-5 models as well. Really, really good projected data going forward for them. Again, could be a decent team to kind of be scouting over the next few weeks, as they are creating quite a lot of opportunities and have the fixture swing around Game Week 12. So definitely a team to keep our eyes peeled on there. Moving on, let's take a look at the 11-5 data for the next 6 game weeks. This, of course, is the clean sheet data. Looks like Arsenal still fancy to do exceptionally well over this time period. So if you do have a Raya, Gabriel, it still potentially could be worth keeping them within the side with some decent fixtures, especially after match day 12. We can see that swing. So maybe just sticking it out, especially if I had Raya. I wouldn't be looking to make a goalkeeper transfer for me personally this week. I would just stick it out and hope for the best. City as well, decent across the next few. So investment into Gvardiol and Lewis does make sense. However, they are still conceding the sloppy goals every single week, which obviously must be super frustrating as a Manchester City defender owner. But it does look like they are still fancied, especially this week and in match day 14 as well for those clean sheet percentages. I think the injury to Walker as well also bodes quite well for Rico Lewis owners. Liverpool, maybe if you've got Trent, still could be worth keeping. The fixtures aren't awful after Arsenal, 2 home fixtures. Then, of course, they have a decent fixture away at one of the newly promoted sides as well. So you could keep Trent for this period, especially if you may be on a 12 wildcard. Maybe just have a little bit of a rearrangement there and then potentially reevaluate how your squad is looking at that point. Or as well, if you are obviously on transfers, build them up till around game week 13, then maybe potentially look to dip off Trent and the Liverpool assets at that period. Brentford, Everton, United and Fulham are probably my teams I would be looking at for cheap defensive assets over the next few weeks. I think Wolves as well, despite them being quite low and also quite low on the XG conceded column, do have some really good fixtures, and we definitely have to start paying attention to people like 8 Nuri, not only because the clean sheet percentages are going up, but also because how good he is as an attacking asset. In terms of teams we want to be obviously avoiding, I do feel it's pretty common sense that the newly promoted sides that all were down there for XG conceded also continue within that trend as well. Villa's fixtures are definitely taking a turn over the next few, so Ezri Konsa are definitely going to be a player people are going to be looking to get out of their side. Same goes with Brentford as well. There isn't too much to write home about in matchday 10, 11 or 12. So after this week, probably worth getting off their players. In terms of the projected goals, as we can see, Manchester City top. Obviously, that big 3.3 against Southampton is massively carrying them. But with the news breaking today that KDB is apparently going to spend a lengthy period of time out, it could spell the end of Erling Haaland. The numbers do look decent. However, maybe this could be the period where we do dip off. We have a front, maybe a free of Palmer, Salah, and maybe like a Son or a Saka, rather than, of course, having Erling Haaland in the side. When you do obviously get him out, it does free up a lot of funds, but getting him back in could be super difficult, and you never know with Haaland, and you never know with Manchester City. They could just go on that period like they usually do around Christmas, where they start to get a little bit invincible, really, where they just don't lose games. It look very, very good going forward. So yeah, City always have that in the locker. Pep teams always do. The projected goals are still the best over the next few weeks. However, it will be interesting to see how they do look once that matchday 9 fixture has been removed. Liverpool, a difficult fixture this week on paper, but I do think with the Saliba injury, they will have a lot more chances than if he was available. After that, though, matchday 10, 11 and 12, definitely still looking strong. So if I was a Salah owner, I'd keep him for this difficult fixture and hold him all the way up until probably I'd keep him for even longer than that. He looks really, really good at the moment. Probably worth selling Saka again. Doesn't look like he's been in training this week. I do feel you've got 2 options. You could go for, of course, Son, or you could go for Cole Palmer. I do feel kind of favour Spurs' fixtures for the next 3. Then, of course, I would look to move on to Cole Palmer around 12, as we can see here with the projected goals as well. Matchday 9, 10 and 11 look really, really good for Spurs, especially that 11 looking super, super appetising and gives you a decent captaincy potential. Obviously, Chelsea have Arsenal as well, so that's not the greatest fixture. But then post that, you are looking at some great fixtures coming up for Chelsea, and that is where I would make that switch as well. You could also do the same with Mohamed Salah. As you can see, after 12, they do dip away for Liverpool, so that could also be a join point for Cole Palmer as well. United's looking pretty decent, so are Brentford's as well over the next set of fixtures. They've been pretty decent going forward as well so far this season. Interestingly, Forest sat all the way down in 18th. Despite their good start to the season, they've not been fluid in front of goal. That's probably the best way to put it. So maybe if people are looking at somebody like a Chris Wood, it could be worth potentially taking a look at this, seeing that there's not too many projected goals, seeing that I don't think he will keep scoring every single week like he has done, and maybe just reevaluating their transfer strategy on potentially bringing in Chris Wood. I like him as an option. However, those projected goal numbers would be slightly putting me off. That, of course, was all the data you need for this game week. Now we're going to head on into my team selection and, of course, talk about my transfers. Right, wasting no time, let's dive into my team selection ahead of this match day or game week. It's because I've been playing Champions League Fantasy this week. Let's start off with our goalkeepers first. Fabianski and Raya. I'm not going to touch Raya. We saw with the 11-5 data, the clean sheet projection odds are still pretty decent for the next few. I do think there will be a worse defence with Saliba not available. The fixtures for the next three as well are honking. However, for me, goalkeeper transfers are not worthwhile for me and my team. I'll rather just take a goalkeeper out on a wild card. Arsenal will still be a good defence. We saw there's that big upswing as well after these three difficult fixtures, and then the fixtures for them really do go on a nice run. And I think over the long term, he will still score quite well, so I'm very happy to hold him. In terms of the defence, Mikolenko, Konza and Aina all have pretty decent fixtures this week. Obviously, my only concern is probably with the Mikolenko and the Konza ones, because how well Fulham and Bournemouth have attacked so far this season. We saw it with the expected goals created so far this season. Both Bournemouth and Fulham have been up there. I think the only blessing with Mikolenko, of course, is the return of Jared Branthwaite, or the pending return. Obviously, it was rumoured he was going to be back this week. That wasn't the case. So if he's back again, I do feel a little bit more confident in Everton. They've also managed to keep back-to-back clean sheets, so it does look like they've kind of secured their defensive resiliency that they had towards last season. Aina, I think, will be fine against Leicester. Again, they were right down there for XG created so far this season. I think probably the only player that, might do well is, of course, Jamie Vardy, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see if he's remaining within my side. On the bench is going to be Robertson and Greaves, who is out until November. Robertson, we will talk about his replacement in the next section of the video. Moving on into the midfield, we've got Mbeumo, Son, Rodgers and Salah. I'm pretty happy with all the midfielders we've got in here. Obviously, it's not the easiest fixture for Mohamed Salah. However, I do feel with no Saliba, I expect him to get some opportunities in this game as well. Penalty taker, can't complain at that one. Son away at Palace. Palace have looked woeful this season as well. One of the lowest scoring sides. They're really at rock bottom and potentially could even sack their manager as well if things do continue to slide. And obviously with Spurs looking so good on those expected goals models, I'm really fancying them. And Mbeumo could be a differential captain option if you wanted to go down that route as well with Ipswich at home. Again, we did see they were the worst side for expected goals conceded. We also saw on the Fantasy Football Hub projected models as well, it is looking pretty decent for Brentford in terms of those attacking returns as well this week. So very happy to have him. Obviously, Sharda on our bench. He's probably going to lose his place because Vissa's back and he hasn't really pulled up any trees in that striker position. So again, will be probably coming out of the side in the next few weeks to make the money for Cole Palmer to get in game week 12 as a replacement for Son. Moving on to our front three, it is going to be Calvert-Lewin, Jamie Vardy and Erling Haaland with the armband. Let's first off talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Man, this guy. 1.32 expected goal involvement in the game against Ipswich. Fulham at home, then they've got a pretty-ish fixture, and then they've got, I think it's Southampton away or potentially at home again. So I'm going to keep him for this free and hope for the best. I'm going to just stick with him. I'm just going to stick with him for the next three. If he continues to disappoint, I do think we'll obviously make that move to another forward. But for the time being, I'm going to stick with him. Jamie Vardy is probably going to come out of the side this week. I know they've got Nottingham Forest, but they've been super good defensively so far this season. We saw that with the XG conceded charts as well. Really good defence since Nuno has come in. Made them very hard to beat. I think as well, Vardy, I got a little bit lucky. He got a penalty. We'll take it. We'll move him on out of the club. They do have Ipswich in the following game week. That is the only thing that potentially could keep him in the side. However, I do think it's probably time we just cut our losses. We got a goal out of him and move forward. Haaland is going to be our captain. We're not going to activate the triple captain. Now we know that KDB probably isn't going to be featuring this weekend. We'll wait for further updates from Pep Guardiola regarding his fitness. So we are going to keep him as captain. Again, if City look disappointing in terms of overall goal creativity and Haaland fails to have another big chance, I definitely think there is scope to go without him over this period unless City can find a way to continue to maybe be a more attractive and attacking side overall. So that is how the team is lining up for this week. In terms of the transfers then, Let's start off first with the Robbo replacements. I could hold him, but I think with Champions League, Carabao Cup the following week, there's probably going to be some rotation. We've already seen that from him, so I think it's better to get out ahead and obviously bring in a player that could rise in price. Obviously, Manchester City were top or second, I think, for the 11-5 model in terms of projected clean sheets. Rico Lewis has high upside as well for his price point as well, so I would like to get him in the side at some point this season. Another player that has caught my eye is Diego Dalot. Manchester United's fixtures are pretty decent. We saw again on the 11-5 model that they have some really, really good projected clean sheets coming up. My only concern is they are quite low down on the expected goals conceded so far. However, this lad has been a bonus point magnet. West Ham away. West Ham have been really, really struggling. Again, could be El Sacchio and maybe the managers of either side could potentially get sacked. Chelsea at home could be difficult, but then Leicester at home is a cracker in game week 11. In terms of the Vardy replacement, there are two people on the mind. Cunha from Wolves. I like him over Strand Larson just because of the penalty appeal, and I think he has better expected assist potential rather than just the goals as well, which Strand Larson is providing at the moment. However, somebody that has definitely caught my eye, obviously came off the bench in the game at the weekend for Brentford. If Thomas Frank gives us a very, very positive press conference comment, I'm very, very tempted to go for WISSA. Obviously had his season cut a little bit short due to an injury. He is back on the grass, played around 30 minutes. Shorter hasn't been delivering the goods, and the next few fixtures are delightful. Obviously, Ipswich, Fulham and Bournemouth is a great set. That Ipswich fixture as well, with them being the worst defensive side in the league, looks very, very appealing and could be a mega differential for me up front. When him and Mbeumo are cooking together, they create some magic, and I'm hoping that could be the case yet again. Let me know what you think of the side down in the comments below. Are there any players that I'm potentially missing out on? If you've got any questions about your team as well, get them in the comments as we will try to answer as many as we possibly can. Thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in game week 9.